Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio, and today I want to talk about sales presentations and finding your presentation style. This is important. I want you to start thinking about your presentation style. One of the things I often do is I watch other people present. I'm that person that always analyzes how other people present. I'm also that guy that turns on the television on Sunday just to watch preachers to see how they present. I'm always about how do people communicate messages, and I really love to study the art of why people do the things they do and how they do them from the stage. And I want you to start thinking about this because I think it's important to figure out a way to develop your own style. Now, too often, people try to copy somebody else's style. And because you do that, you're inauthentic. You're inauthentic. And that means that your customers can feel that while you're presenting. Believe it or not, they can feel it. They can tell when a salesperson is pushing the presentation. It's not flowing from them. They're pushing it, which means they're basically reciting a script, or they're sounding like it's not even their words anymore. And one of the things I'd like you to start thinking about is, are you authentic when you present? Because this will undermine your sales. If you're not authentic in your presentation style because you're trying to mimic someone else, you're trying to do it someone else's way, it's not going to work. I've learned this from experience. I've learned this from personal experience. Many years ago, I used to present in a very formal way. I used to kind of have the opening slide. I would give an outline. I would do the basic, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just told them, right? The structure of a basic sales presentation. And I remember I would go through the presentation, and again, because typically the company would give me a deck of slides, and I would just go through the presentation. And I noticed after some time that, I don't even think it was after some time, I think I noticed quite quickly after a few presentations that customers would just tune out. And you can tell when somebody's tuning out, when they start looking at their phone or, just kind of looking all over the place but paying attention. And I realized that the reason they're not paying attention is that the presentation's too canned. It sounds too canned. And too often I see this. I see this a lot. I see people present their products or their service, and they try to present it with passion and power, but it comes across as like a floppy fish because they really don't believe in what they're saying. And that's because it's not that they don't believe what they're selling is real or is good and is worth selling and is worth what they're talking about. The problem is that they're presenting it in such a way that's not congruent, keyword, not congruent with who they are. Now, let me give you a couple of extreme examples. I know a friend of mine named Larry. Larry's like a good old boy, backwood good old boy. He likes to present. He's from the South, and he likes to be very casual when he presents. Never wears a tie, doesn't like suits, just very casual. And his way of speaking is very plain, very slow, very plain. Talks directly to people, and let's just say he doesn't have a lot of filters when it comes to speaking. And he's very successful, and I think people see he's authentic. He may be a little abrasive, but they know he's authentic because he just basically says what's on his mind. Now, I know other presenters who are very polished. Everything. The presentation's beautiful. Their $3,000 suit is beautiful. The tie, the hair, everything's done right. And they present, but people can sense the inauthenticness of that person. I don't even know if that's a word, but you know what I'm talking about. They're not authentic, and because they're not authentic, people tune out. So my question to you is, as you're presenting, how comfortable do you feel? How comfortable do you feel when you're presenting that you say to yourself, this feels right to me? Because sometimes we hate to admit to ourselves that we're not presenting the way we would typically present. So my question to you is, in your next presentation, I want you to analyze, and the question I want you to ask yourself is, am I being authentic in how I present? Or am I pushing the presentation? If you're pushing the presentation, you won't be effective. See, sometimes you can have the right material. You can say the right things. You can have the right material. You can have the right price points. You can have the right clothes. But something registers at a subconscious level within our clients that they don't trust you. And it isn't because you've done anything. It's just because they don't feel that you're being authentic from the front of the room as you're presenting or even having a one-on-one conversation. So what I'd like you to start thinking about is, how can you begin to get back to your authentic self? Now, it sounds weird, but I really want you to think about that. How can you get back to your authentic self? How can you present the way you want to present? Or here's another angle for you. I want you to start thinking about your presentation, and I also want you to think about how you would like to be sold. If somebody was presenting this product to you, how would you like to be sold? How would you like the information to be delivered? And when would you like the information delivered? Let me explain this one. When you want the information delivered in a certain way means oftentimes, presenters don't want to give you the price right up front. They want to backload it. In other words, put it at the end of a presentation. Well, let's say you're doing a 45-minute presentation and within 10 minutes, the customer says, well, okay, can you give me an idea of cost? I've seen a lot of presenters do this. Well, Mr. Customer, I'll get to cost in just a bit. Let me just kind of show you a couple more things, then I'll get to cost. Another 10 minutes go by. Customer's still wondering, what about price? And you say, okay, I'm getting to that. They'll say that, and you'll say, well, I'm getting to that. And 30, 40 minutes, finally around the 50-minute mark, almost an hour, you finally give them the price. Now, if you're the buyer and you're listening to this presentation, first of all, I would think, just like me, I would be frustrated. I would be frustrated because I'm like, damn it, get to the price. Tell me what this is going to cost. I need to have an idea. Don't wait to the end. Don't treat me like a child by saying, just wait to the end and I'll give it to you at the end. Because that's kind of what we do sometimes when we're talking to people, right? We'll give them the price at the end and we treat them like children, like, okay, not now. Let me just wait 5 more minutes. Let me explain a couple more things and then I'll give you the price. And when you do that, a customer feels like you're, not being very respectful. So when somebody wants to know the price, then give them the price. Give them a range. Now, I know other sales trainers will say, well, you don't really want to bring up price too early. Well, guess what? I want you to start thinking about not what other trainers are telling you, what you feel is right during your sales presentation. Listen to what I just said. What you feel is right. See, nobody can tell you how to present. There is no formula. There's no perfect formula for how to present. You need to take your style, figure out what feels comfortable, and when to deliver the information in a way that you feel comfortable. Now, as for me, I like to frame pricing early. Listen to what I just said. I'd like to frame price early. So I'll talk for about 10 to 15 minutes. And in those 10 to 15 minutes, I focus on giving the customer high content, just a lot of content, stuff that makes them rethink what they're doing currently, give them some insight. Remember that information beyond the obvious, provide them insight like aha moments, but really front load my presentation with high content. So around the 15-minute mark, I know the customer's thinking, well, how much is this going to cost, Victor? How much is this going to cost? And it is around that time, 15, maybe 20 minutes, you pick your moment. Just like I'll pick mine, you pick your moment where I actually give them a price or I frame them. Sometimes I anchor the price, let's say at $1,500, right? Making that up. Or sometimes I'll say it's between, $1,500 all the way down to $500. See, now the customer either has a point of reference, $1,500, or has a frame of reference, $500 to $1,500. Now, what mentally happens is the customer now relaxes a bit because they go, okay, now I know what this is going to cost. Even if they can't afford it, they'll listen to your presentation because you're going to say something like this. Now, it's $1,500 is our average price, but we have various options, some lower, some higher. But at least you gave the customer a price. And you say, let me move through the whole program here. Let me explain a couple of things, and I'll show you what options are available. Some lower, some higher. Get the idea? That's how I present. And I'm just using this as an example to remind you that only you can come up with your own presentation process. Only you can determine what you feel comfortable with and what you feel comfortable saying to the customer and when. So you have to make these decisions. If right now you're not closing deals, you're not feeling comfortable, it may be because you're not being authentic. This is Victor Antonio with another Sales Influence podcast reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care.